YouTube is not the same, and I'm definitely not the first creator to come out here and talk about this. It's only going to change more and more. It's just becoming, I feel like, more and more drastic compared to at least when I started. I wanted to initially make this video about my favorite YouTubers. I've been having this idea for a while. I have like a different idea list, like a bunch of ideas for this channel, Drew IRL, which if you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I really enjoy this channel, but I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, just talk about my favorite YouTube channels on YouTube. And I actually decided to do it today, and I'm scrolling through, I don't know, my recommendations, my subscriptions, and I'm like, these aren't really my favorite channels anymore. Like, these aren't necessarily, my favorite channels. They're just channels that I kind of consume on a regular basis. But do I feel like I can put them in a category as my favorite? And the truth is, no. That's just not the case anymore. These are channels that are very good at pumping out consistent content, but are they my favorite? No. I mean, that's essentially what I do too. I mean, there's not a whole lot of people, I'm sure, that would put me at their favorite YouTubers either, but am I... Well, maybe, because I talk about such a niche subject and there's not a whole lot of other YouTubers that talk about this, but I look back into the day and I think about my favorite YouTubers back then, and it's like, one person that stood out to me is Filthy Frank. I actually I was a big fan of Filthy Frank, not in the very, very beginning, but, because he was making some insane stuff. Now he goes by Joji, obviously, but I was a big fan of him. Those are like some channels that pop out to me back in the day, but I ask myself right now, like, who is my favorite channel? I'm like, man, I don't know. There were different channels in my life that had different eras, different, like, places in my heart that I held near and dear, but, like, now, like, in the recent times, I'm like, I honestly can't think of any. And there's a couple different things that are going on here. Like, first of all, if it wasn't obvious enough, TikTok changed everything. When TikTok got rolled out, well, first of all, it wasn't necessarily in the beginning days. Obviously there was Vine back in the day, but Vine never competed with YouTube on this level. In fact, Vine died because it kind of couldn't compete with YouTube. All the creators left to go to YouTube. That is certainly not the case here. Maybe in the very beginning of TikTok days, TikTok creators wanted to become YouTubers. I don't think that's really the case anymore. But, TikTok becomes kind of big in 2019. I was big. I was there for the PewDiePie invasion. Obviously, he covered PewDiePie, PewDiePie covered TikTok in 2019. Things didn't really take hold where it changed the creator economy on a fundamental level until obviously the lockdowns and the pandemic. That is when everyone started downloading TikToks. That's when moms across America downloaded TikTok, and they have the most power. Do not forget. And that sounds like a joke, but moms hold a lot of power because they are, for many American families, the head of the household, and they choose how the bag is going to get spent. They're the ones that say, hey, this is what my kids want. This is what I want to get my husband. It's because a lot of men are cheap, and I'm one of them. I'm cheap as hell, so I don't like to spend a lot of money. But moms have a better understanding of what needs to be spent on. Sometimes, in my opinion, sometimes not all the time, but the vast majority of the time. So anyways, once they started downloading TikTok, that's really what changed the economy, and that's where advertisers want their eyes. Obviously, advertisers want people's eyes that have a lot of money. So if you make financial content here on YouTube, you're going to be making bank. You don't even need to pull in that many views. If you make 10,000, if you get 10,000 views, but you're making content about stocks, oh my gosh, I can't even, you're making 10x what children's content makes, because the problem with, making content for little kids is, yeah, you're going to get a ton of views, but how much money does a 5-year-old have, for example? The 5-year-old has weight, 5-year-olds obviously can ask their parents to buy a certain gift, but ultimately they don't got the bag. They're not making their bread. So yeah, you want people that have money that invest in stocks. You want moms. You want things like that. So that's what really started changing the game, where now TikTok holds more power, and it's really funny because obviously TikTok has been dictating what YouTube is doing. Obviously, YouTube Shorts would have never been created if it wasn't for TikTok. There was like a 3-year gap where, actually even longer than that, YouTube could have at any point decided to compete for short form content, especially when like there was a vacuum left when Vine disappeared. But even after, like, YouTube Shorts didn't pop up to like the end of 2020, right? Whereas TikTok had been around kind of popular for like a year and a half before that. So YouTube is now competing with TikTok. Obviously, Instagram Reels is a whole nother story. But the thing is, now what they're having to do is that the time for short form content has become longer and longer and longer. They just recently rolled out an update where before a YouTube short would need to be under 60 seconds. Now it's under 3 minutes. It might even get longer than that, I believe. So now, in order to be classified as a YouTube short, obviously the dimensions of the video needs to be like it needs to look long. It needs to like be shaped for your cellular device. But now it can be over 3 minutes. Sorry, just under 3 minutes. And what that is beginning to do is eat into a lot of long form content that YouTube has. So in order to counteract that, YouTube has kind of heavily incentivized creators to make longer and longer and longer stuff. Whereas like a lot of long form content back in the day, trust me, I was there on ground level, would just be 10 minutes and 1 second. And the reason why all the creators back in the day were making videos that were just 10 minutes long and 1 second, or just maybe 10 minutes long in general, was because you could include mid-roll ads. With those mid-roll ads, you're able to make a lot more money off of just a single video, because not only does an ad play before the video, before you even get to watch the video, but now I can put mid-roll ads in and play an ad that's like 3 minutes into my video, or 6 minutes, or 3 and 6 minutes, or every 30 seconds. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But now, because YouTube Shorts is gaining more and more popularity, and they made that shift where like they're heavily incentivizing YouTube short creators to make longer shorts, that is directly cutting into long form content. In order to counteract that, the long form creators are now forced to make longer and longer videos. You want to hit like 20 minutes. I mean, the amount of creators that I see that are making like hour-long videos now, like they're creating like literally movie-length content at this point. And you got to do that a lot. You know, like you want to continue to feed the algorithm. You can't just do this once a year, once every 6 months. There are creators that can successfully do that. But bare minimum, honestly, I would suggest like once a month. Bare minimum. But dang, an hour-long video once a month, that's still very, very difficult to do. So long-form content has had to get longer. And the problem with that is there's just a whole, it feels like Netflix to me. It's really starting to feel like the way I felt about Netflix like 5 years ago, where Netflix just produces pure shit. Like it's just crap. I don't even have Netflix, and there's videos of me like complaining about this, like I think 4 to 3 years ago, where I'm like, I don't like Netflix. Like 95% of the content is pure crap. Think about AI slop. That's just Netflix slop. And that's what's becoming, there's just, to an extent, YouTube has always kind of been slop, but because of the connection you have with the creator, I felt like that has been the deeper thing. Now don't get me wrong, I would still much rather watch YouTube than ever watch Netflix, because that's like corporate produced slop. I would still rather watch a singular creator individual make their own form of slop than like a giant Netflix corporation production company that's just like, you know what I mean? Just like, yeah, I still feel more connected ultimately to the creator. And that's why I still think YouTube heading into the future is going to, because believe it or not, YouTube is competing with Netflix. Nobody wants to, they will not admit that, but they are directly competing with Netflix. And they're competing with TikTok, and they're competing with Spotify. They're competing with a whole lot. But, and video games even, which is a crazy, Netflix is competing with video games. I mean, everyone's competing for your time. So anyways, point is that, you know, back to the subject, it's like, well, because that effect is going on, and it's, you know, it's really taking place right now. It's really taking hold right now. As you know, as creators, we're kind of just forced to make longer and longer content. It's hard to really feel connected to this content anymore. It's really, really difficult. there's still, I of course still have some of my favorite creators that, but they're not able to pump out as fast. They're not able to pump out content as fast as people, because my favorite creators are creators that put a lot of heart and effort into their content. I think of guys like Eddie Burback, love that guy, Nikki Jakey, Emperor Lemon, Laminio, which seems very like way more like he might have a team behind him. But those guys that like pump out one video a month, I mean that stuff is actually sometimes it's a lot less than that. But I really love those channels. But it's harder and harder for those channels to survive. You had to have you had to have, I was going to say you had to have come up and just have been a creator for like a long time here so people just know who you are. But even that, like, it's still hard for them to compete. I still see them like kind of, and I only know, they're not like exploding in the algorithm. I only know them because they are just classic creators now. It's funny to say some of these creators are classic when like, a lot of them haven't been around for that long. When I think of classic YouTube creators, I think of PewDiePie and Equals3. There you go. Or Ryan Higa. He's classic. He's a Smosh, but they've changed drastically. I realized the other day, like, oh crap, I'm starting to become that like classic creator. I'm finding myself, people putting me in that category as like an old school creator. I'm like, holy crap. But yeah, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, things like that. But yeah, this is like the effect that is occurring, and I don't really see how it's going to get any better. This completely doesn't even dive into the topic of like how shorts, it's really, really hard to be like a classic, a favorite creator when it comes to the short format. Like I think about like some of my favorite TikTokers personally. I don't know if I really have any. There's a couple, but you know what the problem is? Even if I do, which I guess I kind of can name like, or I can recognize a couple, like 2 or 3 faces in my head. I don't know their name. That's the world we're living in, because the algorithm just feeds the content in front of you. I've talked about that on this channel too. Like I cannot remember a lot of their names. So I can remember like some of my favorite YouTuber names. I don't think I can name a single TikTok creator or YouTube Shorts creator that I love, and that's scary. Maybe some of you guys can, but I know this is like a common theme for a lot of people out there in the world right now. So that is all very concerning. A whole other worry that's about to be a change that happens very soon. I'll probably make this into like its own individual video. Is what, I don't know if you've heard the news, but YouTube is now doing this new thing where instead of, I've talked about the mid-roll ads, right? They eventually brought down the ability to put mid-roll ads into your video down to 8 minutes. Now it's kind of funny that they did that, because essentially nobody makes 8-minute videos. There are some channels I'm sure that are beneficial to them, and I'm glad that, a lot of like kind of meme channels that can barely, that are highly edited, they can kind of stretch their video out to 8 minutes. But I'm sure there's some channels that take advantage of that. But for the most part, the vast majority of the YouTube ecosystem, that didn't mean anything for them, because the algorithm still heavily incentivizes making as long of possible videos, like as long as possible type videos. So bringing down the mid-roll ads to 8 minutes didn't do really much of anything. But now what is going on is YouTube is basically saying that you're not going to be able to manually place your mid-roll ads into the video anymore. They're going to force their AI to do it. It literally, the update just happened to, it's very interesting having like so many different channels, because certain channels that I have, I've got 4 different ones, by the way, they get updates, they get some of the new YouTube updates before the others. So right now it's my main channel that is seeing this, where they're telling me I cannot put mid-roll ads, or they're highly recommending, I actually don't even know for sure, they might not even be playing these mid-roll ads. They might be saying because of the intrusive ad, they think it's an intrusive ad, which it might be. I mean, that's kind of they kind of incentivize that, but they're saying that you have to now submit the mid-roll ad for review, and if YouTube deems it an intrusive ad, they're not going to allow you to place that there anymore, and they want you to only use YouTube's algorithm to automatically place these mid-roll ads. I think there's going to be less. There's probably going to be less mid-roll ads, but they believe in the long term this is going to be better for watch time, which it might be. But here's the issue. I literally checked last night. I did let the YouTube automated feature just place mid-roll ads automatically. And they literally put 2 ads right next to each other. I don't get that. Maybe there's some data that I don't understand, but I saw like one mid-roll ad pop up like 8 minutes into the video and then like another mid-roll ad pop up like 4 seconds later. I think it was like 4 seconds later. And if it was, that's really dumb. I don't know if, now maybe they were just trying to smash 2 mid-roll ads at that 8-minute mark. Still, that doesn't sound like a very good, that does not seem reassuring. I don't know about that. Maybe it is good. Maybe they do have the right data where that practice is actually going to work, but they seem to think that like they know better than than creators, which is possible. I'm not going to say that it's not. It actually is possible that YouTube has better data that if they place the mid-roll ads, it's going to increase watch time and then maybe ultimately increase revenue for creators. But I am very worried about that. But that's a really big change. And if the YouTube ecosystem changes here in 2025, it is going to be because of that. And I can't really predict how that's going to be. But absolutely, this change is being rolled out because long-form content is getting longer and longer and longer. So that's directly why this is now a thing that's being rolled out and being forced onto people, because those hour-long videos, these creators, which myself included, will throw in mid-roll ads in, and who knows if it isn't actually, if it's not a good idea. I mean, YouTube kind of put themselves into this little pickle, and now they have to get us all out because they heavily incentivize creators to do this, and now we have to pray that YouTube can get us out of this pickle because they started it. You set up the world, they set up the world, we just play inside of it. It's like a video game, and as creators, it's like, okay, these are the rules of the game. I mean, you don't have to play YouTube like that, but the vast majority of people do. They play it like a video game. So we'll see what happens, but that's going to be the big next ecosystem change.